Story time about how I dumped my girlfriend when I found out she had cancer. Am I the bad guy? My girlfriend and I have dated for almost 7 years. In that time, she always wanted to get married, but I never really felt married, so I never proposed. 2 years ago, I started feeling ready and I decided to buy a ring. But unfortunately, she was diagnosed with cancer. She ended up having to stay in the hospital for a few months and underwent a bunch of therapy. All the treatments and everything were making her lose her hair, and I pretty much became totally unattracted to her. I know this sounds so harsh, but it's the truth. I struggled every single day as I fell out of love with her. When I talked to my mom about this, she told me to just have patience and to stick it out. But I just could not do it. I also didn't want to deal with having to take her to the hospital and helping her with the medication and helping her with the treatments. I wanted my own life. And suddenly I found myself having to drive her everywhere, feed her, clothe her, basically do everything for her. After a while, I asked her mom to move in with us to help me out. And this is when stuff started getting really bad. Her mom was basically taking care of her 24/7, so I pretty much did whatever I wanted. I would go out with my friends, and I even started dating other girls. Here's the thing. My girlfriend and her family have a lot of money, so I basically didn't have to work at all while I was with her. Her parents paid for our rent and pretty much everything we ever did, so I couldn't really break up with her. Part 2 is up. Storytime about how I dumped my girlfriend when she got cancer. Am I the bad guy? My girlfriend's parents paid for our rent and pretty much everything we did. And of course, at the time, I didn't really want to get a job. So I really only stayed in the relationship for the money. Like I said in part 1, my girlfriend's mom moved in with us to help me take care of her. But I pretty much took advantage and decided to start dating other people. I downloaded every dating app I could think of, and I would go on dates every single day. I lied to my girlfriend and her mom and told them that I got a new job. This way, I could pretty much stay out all day. So I found myself with all of this new freedom. I would go on dates and pay for everything with my girlfriend's money. I know you guys probably hate me right now, but it gets worse. After a few weeks, I ended up with 2 new girlfriends. So in total, I had 3 girlfriends. And I got really good at lying to each one and spending time with them. I'd see one of them every single morning and I would tell her that I was going to go to work. But then I would really go to the other girlfriend's house and spend the afternoon with her. And then I would end up going back to my apartment where my original girlfriend lived. And I would spend the rest of the night with her. At this point, she was starting to feel better with all the treatments. But I was just not attracted to her anymore. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how I dumped my girlfriend when she got cancer. Am I the asshole? So at this point, I had 3 girlfriends at the same time, and I was getting really good at lying to them. But since I really didn't have a job and I only used my girlfriend's money to survive, I needed to stay with her. I just didn't find myself attracted to her at all anymore. So I decided to be honest with her and I told her that I wasn't attracted to her, just to see how she would react. She didn't even get mad, she just started to cry and beg me not to leave her. That's when she told me that she didn't want to be alone. But at that point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was falling in love with my other girlfriends. Here's what I did. I went to my other 2 girlfriends and told them a new story. I told them that I got fired from my new job and that I needed a place to move in. I also told them that I wouldn't be able to afford rent. One of them basically kicked me out of her apartment, but the other one told me that I could stay with her for as long as I wanted to without having to pay for rent. So that's the girl that I went with. Then I went to my OG girlfriend's house and I told her that I just couldn't be with her anymore and that I had fallen for someone else. This broke her heart and her dad was really close to kicking my ass. They took all my credit cards and cut me out of her account. So I'm broke as hell right now, but at least I'm happier. Eventually, I'm gonna have to get an actual job, so I'm still trying to figure that out, but my current girlfriend is paying for everything. And my ex is in remission now, which actually does make me happy for her. I'm about to get murdered in the comments, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Am I the asshole for getting upset with my husband after he told me nothing will change while I'm pregnant? So me, 26 female, and my husband, 28 male, who I'll call Jake for this story, have been together for 5 years and married for 3. We have recently started trying for a baby as we both felt like that was the next step in our life together. And 3 weeks ago, I got a positive test back. We were really happy and told our families, and now my mom and mother-in-law want to throw a big baby shower for us. It was just super good news all around. Well, 2 nights ago, me and Jake were getting ready for bed when he reminds me to go through the house and make sure all the lights are off. Now, he can be a little lazy at times, and it has become a nightly routine for me to make sure all the lights are off that he leaves on before we go to bed. I wasn't feeling very well and asked if he could just do it since he wasn't doing anything, and he was literally standing by the door. He then tells me, "No, this is what is expected of you every night." I was just a little hurt, but I didn't want to fight with him, so I just did it. When I came back, Jake goes on this very long and unprovoked rant saying things like, just because you are pregnant does not mean anything will change, and you are still expected to cook, clean, and do all the chores every day because how can you be expected to be a mother if you can't handle a little work? He wasn't yelling or anything, he was just talking to me quietly as if I was 2 inches tall. I was shocked because I had never heard him say anything like this. This rant went on for about 30 minutes before I interjected and asked, "Well, what do you plan on doing to help me with all of this?" He then got extremely defensive, saying he works his ass off at his job to provide for me and what is going to be our future children. For context, I don't work at the moment. My job was not paying enough to justify me going in, so I am a full-time college student. He ended up saying that it doesn't matter how I feel physically or mentally, it's a mother's job to push through, and if he helped and babied me, I wouldn't be a good mother. I got extremely upset and started yelling, and I said that I wish I would have known this is how you felt before I got pregnant with your baby. There was a moment of silence before he started crying and he left for the night to stay at his mother's house. What a bitch. He hasn't been back yet, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-law have called me berating me and saying I broke Jake's heart with what I said and I need to apologize immediately, and until I do, he isn't coming home. I don't know how to feel. So, am I the asshole for yelling at my husband after he said he isn't helping me with anything during the pregnancy because it's a mother's job to deal with it? Like, oh, this is making me mad. This is making me mad. Ew, I've never gotten this upset over a story. That's so fucking, like, that behavior is just disgusting.
My parents used to take my siblings and I to the beach a lot when we were really little because they were like, this is a great way for our children to become both tired and educated, because we would explore the tide pools and stuff and we'd find all kinds of new marine life. Like one time we heard my older brother yell, "Look what I found!" And we looked out into the water and he'd waded out a little bit and he was holding up a jellyfish in his hand. And obviously my parents freaked out and they scooped him out of the water and they separated him from the jellyfish. And I was the younger sister. I was like, well, I should also get to hold the jellyfish if he got to hold the jellyfish. And they said no. And I said, why not? And they said, because you could die from holding a jellyfish. And I was like, no, because he'd die first. So we'd know to take me to the emergency room. It'll be fine. Let me hold the jellyfish. They said no. I was angry. I was like, I have the worst parents in the world for not letting me hold the wild, venomous ocean alien that my brother found, and he got to hold it. He was totally fine, by the way. I don't know if it was one of those jellyfish that just doesn't have much sting to it, or if it had been dead for a really, really long time, but my brother was fine. My parents also implemented this rule that we weren't allowed to bring home any stones or shells from the beach because we needed to leave them behind so everyone who passed through the beach could see how pretty they were, which I still actually believe to be pretty true depending on who owns the beach, what my relationship is to it. Shells. Yeah. So we weren't allowed to bring them home, but I'm pretty sure my parents did that because they didn't want us emptying out the entire beach from our pockets into the house. But sometimes if we found something we really, really liked, we would sneak it. Like one time I found this giant shell. It was technically a Dungeness crab, and it was dead, and it was missing a leg. And here's what my little brain thought when I found this dead crab. If you don't know what a Dungeness crab is, it is the kind of crab you'd see like on a plate at a restaurant. It's the medium-sized eating crab. And I thought, in the tide pools, there are the hermit crab dudes, right? And they leave their shells behind and you can pick up the shells and they're empty. And I thought that because this was also a crab, that it had left the shell behind. I didn't understand that I was collecting a dead animal. And I hid it under my coat and I took it home and I put him in a shoebox and I hid the shoebox in the top shelf of my closet. And sometimes I would take the box down from the closet and just look at my super cool shell. And my mom was constantly coming into my room and saying, what stinks in here? And I didn't understand that the crab was what was smelling. I didn't even notice the smell myself. And she'd always walk in and she would like try to find it and search the room. And one day she walked into my room and she said, I swear it smells like you have a dead animal in here or a fish or something. And I said, well, I kind of have a fish. And she said, what? And I got my shoebox down and I showed her my cool shell. And she explained to me that I'd brought home a dead animal and put it in my closet.
Am I the asshole for banning my boyfriend from my car after he threw away my husband's car pendant? I, female 33, am a widow and lost my husband of brain cancer in 2017. I'm currently with my boyfriend of 2 years and he used to have his own car but totaled it and got injured as well. I started driving in places and for so many times he commented on my husband's car pendant. I hang it on the rearview mirror and he called it old and distracting, which annoyed me a lot. He suggested I replace it with a more elegant mirror charm, but I refused and told him to respect that this is a sentimental item I want to keep. Well, I found out that yesterday he took it and threw it away. I had it with him and went off. Am I the asshole for banning my boyfriend from my car after he threw away my husband's car pendant? I had it with him and went off on him for nearly 30 minutes while he tried to explain that he didn't think it was pretty or useful. He offered to get me something else and something more elegant and pleasing. I loudly told him he overstepped and said from now on he won't be allowed in my car and I won't be driving him anywhere. He said I can't do that because he lost his car and has an injury and needs to be transported. I suggested his brother, but he ranted about how I was over-exaggerating. I said it's not his car and I don't go around throwing his stuff out despite it being his car. Am I the asshole?